Hello fellow hunters, today is for the amphibians. Specifically since there's only two of the blighters, the frog and the shark. I admit this is one of these things is not like the other situation, but I don't make the rules here. And hey, frogs can be intimidating. I wanna pop it. But, you know, sharks, right? Sharks, they're always terrifying as hell.
You're my honey bun, sugar plum, pumpy umby umpkin. You're my sweetie pie. You're my cupcake gumdrop, snickums, spickums.
Let's bite into this then and begin with Zamtrios, who is known as the monster shark.
No shit, Sherlock!
Yeah, it doesn't leave much to the imagination, I'll grant you, but it is accurate. On the surface, at least superficially, he is just a fuck-off shark. From the classic maw lined with serrated teeth that shred flesh by simply brushing against it, to that symbol of terror adorning his back as it screams towards you, cutting through ice as if, well, it was water once more. Make no mistake, the Zamtrios is a powerful predator. But to understand him, well, let's return to his childhood. The Zamtrios hatched from a cluster of eggs encased in ice, left there by a mother long since departed, and one whom has no intention of ever returning. An action as cold as the environments that they inhabit, but one born of necessity, as an adult Zamtrios has a hard time resisting the little morsels of meat that are currently pulling themselves out into the world for the first time. Once breathing the air, the little adorable little sharky little look at him!
Baby shark, do-do-do-do-do, baby.
So this adorable little smush face only really cares about two things in this life, and, well, they are eating and sleeping. So essentially every day is a Sunday for them. And, well, they're kinda tiny, which poses a problem because there's already sparse life when it comes to these frozen seaways, and nearly all of them have nothing to fear from such a tiny little aggressor. So, to avoid, you know, starving to death, the Zamites have a little trick. They're capable of latching onto a larger creature and very much leech-like sucking it dry of blood.
Oh, dear Neptune! Get off of me! Get off of me! Help me!
Allowing it to essentially circumvent the need to hunt and kill prey at a young age, and replacing it with a simple task of merely getting within striking distance of a docile herbivore. So once teeth are sunk into flesh and locked in place, it gorges, guzzles as the blood fills its very being, stomach expanding to grotesque sizes in a cute little bit of foreshadowing. Once blood stores are at, then it will happily flop away from the victim and begin an explosive display of growth unrivaled in the world of Monster Hunter.
Zamite!
Zamtrios!
At a flip of a switch, surge to adolescence, the horn crest more prominent, size more intimidating, better able to both hunt and defend itself, as it slowly now marches towards being a fully fledged Zamtrios. And as it does, various natural weapons engage that it never knew it had. So this takes us back then to Zamtrios himself, able to perform quite the bag of tricks. not least of which is his powerful back legs, allowing him to jump skyward before crashing down into either Hunter or the ice itself, drilling into it in a corkscrew motion before entering the icy waves beneath, of which it likes to spend a lot of its time waiting to sense the tiny movements and vibrations of potential prey. Make no mistake, much like the polar bear, if you spot a Zamtrios, then you are likely already dead. It has been tracking you for a while now, and it will not give up. Stubbornness and need to feed, the thrill of the hunt, all contribute to a relentless pursuit, an exhausting, harrowing chase across the endless sheets of ice. You will tire long before the Zamtrios does. Almost spiteful in its pursuit of prey, disregarding easier morsels happening right by, lest it suffer the indignity of an intended meal, giving it the slip. The bloodlust of a Zamtrios is legendary. Once forced into a battle against more equal opposition, well, they have a variety of methods, from using sheer bulk to smash and charge and chomp, to more tricksy approach, burrowing under the ice and coming careening upwards underneath in a lightning-quick surprise attack, all the way to jets of ice, cutting opponents to ribbons with sharpened hail. However, it is not until you push one too far that it unleashes its most impressive arsenal. Able to propel at great pace a liquid from pores in between its layers of skin. Yeah, Zamtrios has layers of skin.
Layers!
Allowing it to simply shed away patches of damaged coat for a new, freshly minted, flexible, shock-absorbent, rubbery layer, providing great protection and insulation. This liquid propelled, then, is concocted to be exceptionally susceptible to freezing in only the mildest of colds. So in the sub-zero temperatures the Zamtrios calls home, it freezes nigh instantly, coating and clinging to the skin of Zamtrios, giving it this air of a suit of armor forged in cold. The spike it once had in its youth now returned in full force, albeit temporarily, providing both a defensive and offensive boon. The Zamtrios now renews its assault, adrenaline pumping faster and more aggressive than ever. This is where, as they say, shit gets real. But should you push through this challenge, you will be met with the Zamtrios' desperation Hail Mary card. And that is to release high-pressured gas produced and stored in internal organs at great volumes, expanding the beast to many, many times its original size, its legs now comically small against this ball of flesh. Zamtrios will only ever do this when it feels truly in danger, for it comes with many drawbacks. A loss of maneuverability is evident, but the skin now exceptionally thin, easy to pierce, and essentially inviting him to be burst like a balloon. Though it does grant him immense crushing power. Using his body like a fleshy spring, he can achieve flight for the briefest moments before tumbling down and cleaving rocks in twain under his immense bulk. He will roll around, attempting to indiscriminately crush any and all things near, spouting balls of ice in a hope to catch whatever has caused him this disarray in its frozen embrace. And lastly, able, if the opportunity arises, to scoop up in its jaws and swallow whole a hunter, where they will be subjected to one of the most scarring experiences possible, jostled around in the dark, crushed and burnt. As acid eats away at you, you have mere moments to force the shark to regurgitate you before your life is robbed. Eventually tiring, then, it will deflate, the air released through its gills, and normality is restored, and thus the cycle repeats. And the fun thing is, right, as I said, he is frog-like, the amphibian class. Frogs in real life do often sound like they are deflating. Seriously, I think frogs and toads are fucking wonderful. Lastly then, it should be said that there is a subspecies, the tiger stripe Zamtrios, who, quite paradoxically, dwells in the desert. No longer required to keep its skin perpetually moistened, it has turned to sandpaper-esque quality, causing you to bleed profusely at just a little graze. Past that, this Zamtrios is all about the belly, as it spends much more time inflated and has a much greater skill at using the form, much more acrobatic and just generally all around more powerful at the cost of the ice armor stage. Though, there's not much else to say about Zamtrios. Oh, actually, except but one thing. Their favourite food is frogs. What? Which I think is the perfect time to move on to the glorious Tetsucabra, who is the demon frog, though shares a lot more in common with toads, but further though, all toads are frogs, but not vice versa, so there you go. He, then, the crimson red, and the huge tusks forming his lower face. Lower face. I felt like I used the word jaw too much when talking about Zamtra, so I was thinking, because I never script these, right? I know generally what I want to say, you know, I know the creatures better than I know myself, and I just kind of speak, but there I was like, alright, don't say jaw, what can we do? Lower face! Ah! For fuck's sake! Tetsucabra then is very much traditionally your hoppy frog. He uses his bounds and leaps to great effect, constantly coming at you with unceasing, seemingly stamina, leaping to and fro and bulldozing past anything that might try to get in his way, spending his days hidden just below the surfaces of ponds and waiting for hapless prey to wander on by, at which point they spring! And thus, the fight is already decided. It cannot be denied the tusks of a Tetsucabra are its most striking feature, savage-looking, sharpened to a point and able to penetrate rock, yet their purpose is not to be used aggressively. They are intimidation factor, they're used to burrow through solid rock. They are used to move boulders aside in the damp caves that Tetsu likes to sleep in. They are used, in fact, to lift great stones out the earth to block off a would-be assailant, and indeed acquire smaller ones to crush into a shower of rock tumbling down upon a smaller enemy. The Tetsu is nothing but industrious, a absolute master mason, and he takes great pride in his work, and even greater in the tools itself. For the male with the largest and most impressive natural chisels is the one that will win the female. Once the female has been enraptured and appeared before the male, well then it's time for one hell of a display. The Tetsucabra will go about carving out great gouges of earth, creating deep chasmy holes as fast as possible, thus proving he not only possesses the tools for the job, but knows how to use them. If the female is suitably impressed thereon, she will deposit her eggs within, and then kind of fuck off. The male will fertilize them, and then get this, will hold them in his jaw, not leave them in the ground, no, he will pick them up in his jaw, leave the eggs in his jaw until they hatch, refusing to eat until that day. That is dedication right there. That is a loving father, okay? He is so strong to look after, like, 50 children when their mother left before they were even technically conceived. But this does mean there is a chance, if you get really unlucky with the timing, that you can hit a Tetsucabra in the face, and a swarm of baby Tetsucabras will come spilling out like an avalanche and smothering you.
Oh, no, no!
You let that image sink in for just a moment there. A Tetsu then is very strong, able to lift over 4 times its weight in just its mouth, and being one to never skip leg day, is able to leap high in the air while still burdened with this load, crashing down with one hell of a concussive force. Can also use the balls it picks up as straight up shields, allowing it to deflect against much more powerful predators, such as even the Kushala Daora. Though that said, most large monsters with which it shares its environment are more than capable of seeing it as prey. From the Glavenus to the Zenoga, it has to be wary, but fortunately, it's quite the clever cookie, again a symptom of it being able to construct elaborate mazes of rock that it calls home, allowing it to have layers of defense when it is at its most defenseless. Finally then, it can both produce and spit globs of what is best described as adhesive, a potent mixture that, while not capable of fully immobilizing targets, certainly is a huge hindrance, creeping into the joints of armor and making movement ever so difficult. The Tetsucabra then is quite the fun little guy, and honestly was wonderful when I first saw him. A real charming early game monster that has a lot going for it, and I have fond memories of him, from trying my darndest to snipe his inflated white tail, to desperately trying to avoid boulders that I didn't know weren't actually that threatening at the time. The Tetsu then does come in a few extra flavors. The Berserk Tetsucabra, who is a Tetsucabra that lives in warmer climes, more volcanic to be precise. Instead of your regular run-of-the-mill rock, he is more into the explosive variety, which is why he kinda looks like that cliche mad scientist that experiment's gone wrong, it's exploded and they've got soot in their face and their hair's all frizzed up. Essentially that's what's happening with the Tetsu, but with the ash and the scorching burns from essentially repeatedly detonating charges in his gob. After that, it's very similar, but it is a very nice little take on him, and honestly, I prefer it to the deviant, the Drill Tusk Tetsu, which is kind of Tetsu, but really good at using his tusks. He's a little bit lame. I mean, one tusk is overdeveloped, and he can use that to great effect, but I don't know. I feel like it should be reversed. The drill should be the subspecies, and the berserk the deviant. Well, there you go, everyone. That's your amphibians. And it is so sad there's only 2 of them. I think they're a fantastic little group, and they really deserve another member. It would be a wonderful way to add some genuine variety to any kind of future World Ultimate Edition, and really, that's what we need. I want to see the more unique monsters come back and really fill out the roster in a meaningful way. The snake types would also be good, the insects, and of course the subject here, the amphibians. And Tetsu would be really nice wandering around the ancient forest. There's plenty of water around the place, he could have quite the little surprise attack, and I think the rock mechanic could be done much better in World, because as it is, it's a neat idea that he pulls up huge boulders to block an area of the zone off, but in practice it essentially does nothing, really. So I kinda dig him actually blocking off the entrances to the zone that you're in, kind of trap you in a froggy Thunderdome. That would be fun, right? Zamtrios is harder, given that, you know, he is a icy monster. You could put just Tiger Stripe in the desert and say that only his subspecies is in the game, and I'm totally fine with them doing that. I think it's perfectly possible, and indeed pretty awesome, if we get a few monsters only in their subspecies forms, like only that one is found in the new world. But Zamtrios, make no mistake, would be an excellent addition to any future ice map and the monsters contained within, because he is just simply unforgettable. That inflation, I mean, every time, no matter how many times you hunt him, honestly, brilliant. So they both work, they both have their place, they both feel believable enough for me, and I think a lot of Monster Hunter World only players would appreciate them. In fact, if that applies to you, if you're seeing them for the first time properly here, let me know what you think of them. But for now, my name has been Josh. Like, enjoy this, subscribe for more. Let me know what you'd like to lore next, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Rage Gaming with the video float.
But that's all that's really relevant at the mo, but I'm still gonna leave this up so you patrons know that I love you, even though the outro's no longer that kind of relevant. But the new one's being worked on, and it's gonna be a truly badass song, and don't worry, I won't be doing any rapping on it. I'm gonna go now. This was shit.